Okay, thank you everybody for joining today. We're here with Anil and Indian Television doing a Demystifying the French OTT market. So I have some people with us that are very present on the French television market. If you guys would each introduce yourselves, please. I guess Gabriel, Marion, and Jessica, if you could introduce yourselves. Gabriel.
Who goes?
Ladies first.
Okay, I'll go for it to avoid wasting time. Marion Ranchet, thank you for having me. I am a former Orange and Roku exec, and I recently launched my consultancy to help streaming video companies to launch and grow on the European market.
Great. Jessica? Can't hear you. No.
Jessica, you have to add your Wi-Fi audio.
Okay, I'll go while Jessica is tuning in. So I'm Gabriel Mandelbaum. I'm a co-founder and president of Speedio. Speedio is a technology company providing recommendation systems to video platforms. We're based here in Paris, providing to companies all over the world, in Brazil, Mexico, all around Europe. And we have many customers here in France, Canal+, Bouygues Telecom, SFR, France Télévisions, and more.
Great.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, Jessica.
Okay, great. Sorry. So I am Jessica Benchetrit. I am in charge of business development for VOD Factory. VOD Factory is a French startup that specializes in themed streaming services by providing a technical tool that makes it easy to launch a streaming service, and also by connecting with telco operators to help smaller streaming services being distributed widely.
Great. And I forgot to introduce myself. I'm Lara from 3SS. We're a German company, and we do user interface work for some of the bigger telcos for their set-top box and device work. Okay, so thank you for joining. We have a few questions that we wanted to look at. We wanted to go ahead and start off with Jessica. We wanted to look at the business models and the bigger operators and talk about SVOD a little bit. If you could just give us, we only have 30 minutes, so it's super tight.
Okay, so in France at the moment, we have all of the business models that you know for VOD. We had historically TVOD, transactional video on demand, which is smaller and smaller. The business model that is growing the most is, like everywhere else, SVOD, so subscription-based video on demand. And we also have a lot of initiatives at the moment on AVOD, so advertisement-based video on demand. Regarding SVOD, we have all the main players, international players such as Netflix, Disney Plus, and others that will enter the market very soon. We have a few local players with OCS, for example. And we also have a lot of local initiatives, mostly on specific themes or specific communities, where the idea of the people who create these services is to offer a complementary service. So the objective is that the public will subscribe to this on top of their Netflix subscription and not in place of the Netflix subscription. So there are a lot of players now in France, and they have different ways of being distributed. So of course there is the OTT access through a website or dedicated mobile apps or TV apps. But we are also on a market where the telco operators are still very strong, and most people receive television through their set-top box. And through this set-top box, they can either watch live television, but also access to and subscribe to Netflix or Disney Plus or other SVOD offers. So now the telco operators have to adapt also to this shift in use and offer on-demand content. It's a move that takes time because they need to adapt all their technical organization as well, but we know that there's a potential in this because now some online-based services are growing strong in France and going faster sometimes than the telco operators, such as Amazon with Amazon channels, which offers a wide variety of SVOD offers.
You know, let me just say on top of that, also, you know, in France, there are so many French vendors, and the French don't need to go elsewhere to get all of their technology because so much of it is done right here. So I think this makes the market very competitive and very advanced. You know, everybody really has all the latest stuff here in France, you know, versus a lot of other countries who do not have the French tech video companies that you know are seen in France. So then we wanted to, speaking of, you know, the video tech companies, take a look at the viewing devices, and so see a little more on the investments that are made. And I'll talk about investments later, actually, for content kind of things. But on the viewing devices, I believe, Marion, were you going to say something about viewing devices?
Yeah, absolutely. So to echo what Jessica was saying, historically, IPTV, so set-top box, was the way for people to watch content. And so the same went for SVOD, etc., TVOD. I think we're talking about 80%, 20% in terms of splits between set-top boxes and the rest of the world, the rest of devices. But since Netflix entered the market, and when they came in, they were only on OTT devices. It took them a bit of time to be on SFR, on Orange, etc., on the telco set-top boxes. They opened up, I think, the market. And so more and more people are actually used to consuming and viewing content, SVOD content via web, mobile, connected TVs, etc. At the same time, you have LG and Samsung. These guys are pushing very strongly to bring the best content value proposition in terms of content. And so actually now it's getting a closer tie between smart TVs on one side and set-top boxes. I think the pandemic also fueled that very much. So we're talking kind of almost 50% when it comes to consuming on-demand content. I think linear TV does remain something that you do when you use your DTH or your set-top box. It's smart TVs are not on par on that side in terms of offering appeal.
No, but I do think here in Western Europe, we're ahead of a lot of other countries who are able to, you know, purchase the new TVs. I know in CEE, they are not, you know, doing the high turnover of the new TVs yet. So the content adaptation to those devices is not as hot as it is here right now. And then, you know, before we moved on, I did want to say that the investment in content, now you see in France, there's like a huge fire, and you see so many co-production with Canal, with UK groups and Belgian groups. I've seen on a lot of different and new ways, I think, that were previously not really done so much, but now they need to put more cash into getting, you know, high dollar content to compete with the services. And then Gabriel, I was going to ask you about with recommendation services, you know, I mean, if it's the UX or if it's the content, what do you think, or how are you seeing the best way for people to keep subscribers and you know, feature the best content? What have you seen?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's actually, I've seen a big evolution in the last 10 years. We've been in business for 12 years. And for example, Canal Plus was one of the first customers of Speedio. We've been working with them for 10 years. And 10 years ago, when we started to work on their first SVOD attempt, it was called Canal Play. They were really about gathering the biggest catalog, but very mainstream, and show it to their subscribers. And recommendation would be just one tool to maybe access faster something a user might like. But it was an idea that, you know, the SVOD offer would be very mainstream. And what we have seen with Canal Plus is they have improved the way they offer content to people. They have used recommendation in a way that has become more personalized and more semantic, and we could work with them on this. And also they have tried to cover all angles of what their audience would like, adding more content, having more originals. Création originale is what Canal Plus is doing, and showing them in all in live TV, Canal Plus, the channel, but also on SVOD, and also creating specific channels in their VOD offering. And for example, Canal Plus Bollywood, they have created a channel dedicated to Indian content, as they've done so for a lot of very niche specific content. So it's not just about the technology and UX and recommendations. This is very important. They have been investing a lot on this, but also it was about to acquire part of the catalog that will match a wider and more specific audience. And I'm talking about the big guys, the big aggregators. So Canal Plus is one, OCS is another one who had, they have the HBO license. They used to have it. On the other side, you see a lot of these provider VOD factories working with launching niche streaming contents. One of them that we really like, also a customer, is ADM. They're specializing in anime, Japanese anime, and globally animation for kids, tweens, and teens. And these guys, they will really adapt their user experience to the catalogs they have, and really trying to find a niche and grow this niche. They launched 7 years ago, and there was not a big audience for anime, and they had a few thousand of subscribers. And 5 years after, in France at least, anime consumption has risen to an incredible amounts of hours and subscribers, and they have nearly 500,000 of subscribers. And they did it by having the right content, the right platform, the right recommendation engine, and really trying to adapt to the audience needs on both sides, content and technology, and at a very fast cycle of innovation and testing and changing it. It's been pretty impressive. I mean, we think in France, it's hard to innovate somehow, but when they have this mindset, the streaming platforms are trying to find an angle, push on it, and when it works, it can really deliver high results in terms of subscribers.
I think you're right, and I think when it can get outside of like the politics thing, it probably will go much faster, you know. And like we had talked about on another panel when we mentioned Salto and how, you know, they were so tied up with CE silliness in Brussels that, you know, my God, you know, Netflix kind of like came and put their flag down. And I think that the Salto group was kind of not anticipating and has suffered a bit from that. Now, I think, you know, I don't know what's going to happen now since this new merge happening of TF1 and M6. Does anybody have any commentaire on that?
Well, I think that if this merger goes through, right, it's still, you know, under review, because it would be building a national champion, which is good on the international stage, but it is viewed as being anti-competitive from, you know, other TV channel and, you know, advertising sales in France. They already agreed that France Télévisions, the public broadcaster, would get out. So, and in a way, this could be a good thing. The reason being that, you know, being 3 to tango could be difficult. So as long as TF1 and M6 invest heavily in local content, like they do on their other platforms, invest in distribution, and they did that. Salto is now available as an Amazon channel, and if they invest on the technological side, you know, they still have their shot. I want to live in a world where I think that local players still have, you know, a hand to play, right? And it's not just the big global platforms in every single market. And I think that you can actually achieve that if you understand deep down the local tastes and what your local audience needs. And I think that very often the best people to do that are the local players, and they've proven it, because you see a lot of very successful titles on Netflix, Disney, etc., that have been made by local players, local broadcasters. So Call My Agent is a good example. France Télévisions did that. They were the ones behind this show, but they did not have the muscles to take it globally. Netflix had. So yeah, being locally relevant, I think that's our strength. Having said that, some days it's tough, right? Because from a money standpoint, it's very difficult to compete with these guys.
Well, and I think also, I was talking to somebody the other day who was saying that Amazon, who's going to do all of these local channels things, is going to put in all Amazon advertising everywhere. And then the whole market will change again with a different allotment of cash going to different parties now for the advertising. But I don't want to get depressed. So
let's see, right? I think the one thing that means that, you know, whoever's partnering with Amazon, you need to be cautious and you need to make sure that you have the widest distribution network possible, because if you are dependent on this one, you know, distribution outlet and they change the rules of the game, meaning that they no longer care about SVOD and everything goes into advertising-based services, then you're done, right? So that's where you need to have ubiquitous distribution wherever you go.
Well, I mean, and that takes us also to the pay TV side, where we're talking about Android operator tier or Google TV. And then, you know, Roku has just staffed up, you know, for a huge hit in Europe as well. And so they'll be headed this way with not too much further delay, I would say. So, I mean, we were going to do some future prediction topics. I don't know, Anil, do you have some questions that you wanted to ask before that?
Yeah. So, you know, in terms of content creation and content acquisition, a lot of the content which is being played out is imported from America, England, and, you know, in terms of local content creation, is a lot of that happening? I'd love to hear from you, Lara, or from Marion, or from Gabriel, or from, you know, I'm sorry, I forgot the other lady's name, but yeah,
well,
sorry.
So I just grabbed on this little article that I sent you guys earlier. It says, now additional legislation on rights ownership, streamers must dedicate 2/3 of their audiovisual works investment to independent production. And then they have some other, you know, shareholding and release window restrictions on that as well. And so they're saying that France is essentially one of the more advanced markets on all of the. Now, I don't want to say, you know, cash out and cash investment, because that's not really true, but on regulations for this. So I don't know if anybody wants to add something there.
Jessica, do you want to go for it, or I can?
No, I just wanted to say that this is also a specificity of the French market, is that it's widely subsidized still, and we have the CNC, Centre National du Cinéma, who will sponsor the projects that have enough French content. So I don't remember exactly how much, what the percentage is supposed to be, but something like 2/3.
Yeah.
So you have projects that are created with that in mind.
Indeed. And I see only 11 out of 27 countries have implemented production obligations like France.
Yeah, it's historical. We've always done that. I think that's our way of kind of protecting, ensuring that we're still producing local content, and it applies to every cultural aspect. And the same goes with radio, books, etc. So some may view this as being kind of very protective and stuff, and not business driven. So I think there's, you know, a fine balance to find, but it enabled us to be amongst the top 5 in terms of content production, and also our ability to export all of that content globally. The one thing that was missing was that, you know, streamers, it's new, and so they were not chipping in. So we've had 2 years of negotiation, and now it's done. They are committed to
20% of their French revenues. 20% of their French revenues to local production.
Exactly, if they are above a certain level of, you know, turnover, right? So it's not everyone will, you know, invest as heavily. Someone that is much smaller may not have to. It's kind of dependent on how big you are, how strong you are.
If I can add up to this, to have an obligation to produce French content doesn't make you a local player. I mean, Amazon will not become French with a beret and baguette just because it's producing 10 French-speaking content a year. Traditionally in France, if we take it not from the industry point of view, but from the audience point of view, actually there was a clear distinction between people who were paying to watch content, basically Canal Plus, and people who were not paying and were watching free-to-air television, TF1, M6. And I think content, and to pay for content, subscribe to Canal Plus was really a social status. Netflix came in and kind of blew this off. And now everybody is ready to pay for content, but I think the social status for the French audience remains somehow, and it's more flexible. And we were mentioning this, that we see more and more households, subscribers who will take the MyCanal or will take the Netflix to get the mainstream content, but then they will add up some things that will be their social status. For example, a more niche cinephile platform like La Cinétech or Mubi, and they will choose, and they will then talk about it in their dinners or gathering with friends, like, oh, I just subscribed to La Cinétech, and this is what marks them socially as, you're a cinephile. And they put, La Cinétech is around 3 to 5 euros a month. So it's a small investment to really put a social etiquette on you. And I think with all this obligation, I mean, this platform, local or international, trying to break in with the French audience, will have to build a culture around the content they produce or acquire, around the brands. And I think Amazon has a long way to go to create this brand where a large French audience will actually decide to put this Amazon social etiquettes on their shoulder.
Yeah. To add on what Gabriel is saying, it's true that it's not only the content, but also the theme and how it can be attractive for the French market. For example, I saw a figure that said that for Roku channels in the States, you have like the most common theme is religion and faith. In France, you don't have any example yet of a platform dedicated to faith that has exploded. You have a few, but they're not very famous. And for example, at VOD Factory, we added a service called Shadows, which is dedicated to horror movies and thrillers. There's not a lot of French content on it. There is some, but the biggest part of the catalog is not French. But it's interesting because when we created it, we identified that there was a real community in France of people attracted to this kind of movies, and we knew that it could work because because all these people in France, same as in the US, are frustrated when they go on Netflix and they can find a lot of horror movies, and so they're interested in subscribing to this very specialized cinephile service. And it's not related to French content, really. It's just the existence of this community and this hobby in France.
Yeah, that's great. I'm going to ask a few more questions in terms of sport. So sport is a big in India, as far as India is concerned, and live news, of course. Sport is very big in India, especially cricket. And OTT and direct-to-consumer services are really, like Hotstar, are doing very well, and Disney Hotstar is doing very well in India. What's the scenario on live and on live sports and on live news as far as D2C is concerned? And how are these being? Are they SVOD or are they AVOD? And what kind of brands are coming on and advertising on these? Is it easy? Are the values that they're deriving high enough as much as television, or are they still lower? Who would like to take that up? Lara, do you want to step in here, or who wants to step in and take this question?
I mean, I am not watching a lot of sport, but I mean, beIN Sport is the one that you would hear about quite a bit.
Sure.
Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I think in France, to me, still sports is very much within pay TV, right? So Canal Plus is a major investor. You have beIN Sports, and then you have the traditional broadcasters. We haven't seen a successful OTT player on the French market. So
there's no DAZN here.
Exactly. So Mediapro tried 2 years ago to buy the League One rights. So in terms of appeal, I think it's similar to cricket in India. It's the one sports and the one league that you want to have. And after a few months, they actually closed down, and the rights went back to Canal Plus and beIN Sport. So DAZN is in France, but they are mostly focused on boxing. So the French market is interesting that way. For now, there's no OTT champion, it's mostly pay TV, but never say never.
But what happened?
The rights of the League One came back to
Yes.
Canal + Bein and Amazon. And
Amazon,
Amazon actually
you're right,
entered
absolutely
the
right.
market after this. It was kind of an apocalypse because it was very stable for years.
Yeah,
Canal
you're
Plus would have the League One and maybe share it some years with Orange Sport. But Canal Plus was really the long game player. And now it's kind of interesting. Canal Plus says they're not interested anymore in League One. It's not enough value. Actually, they're investing heavily in Formula One, in rugby, and other sports that actually are more niche from a French standpoint. So actually, we have lived through a disruption from OTT players, not DAZN, but MediaPro and Amazon. But for now, my point of view is this disruption just made the whole value of Soccer League One just decrease. And I'm really curious to see the next bid for League One. Should be kind of a bloodbath, I think.
And OTT is also an opportunity for secondary sports, because all these main sports, so mostly football in France, but also rugby, there are these big battles around the rights. But then you have secondary sports like, I don't know, volleyball or sports that are not as visible in traditional TV. Through OTT, they have now the opportunity of creating their own media and mastering how they are broadcasted, so they don't have to wait to be broadcasted at 3 a.m. on I don't know which sports channel. They can have their own applications, their own website where they can gather their fans, and they don't have to be millions of them if it's through OTT.
Yeah, there's a question. We're running short on time, but there's a question I'd like to ask. How much of your time do each of you spend on OTT versus paid television? Beginning with Jessica, how much of your time do you spend?
I don't own a TV, so 100% on OTT.
Okay, who else? Marion?
So I used to be at Orange, so I was STB the whole way. My TV was dumb completely. But then I moved to the Netherlands and I could not find something that was appealing. So I cut the cord, just like Jessica. I do have a TV, but I use either a streaming device or the Samsung interface.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gabriel.
actually, I'm the same. I when my first daughter was born, I put the TV set in the basement, and she doesn't even know what is a TV set, and so everything we watch is OTT, but what I watch mostly is my Canal Plus, my Canal accounts. So it's hard for me to say if it's pay TV or OTT. For me, my Canal really did this hybrid genius move to really transform their traditional pay TV into OTT. So I watch my Canal mostly, and if you like, top of my head, I would say this is pay TV, but not on the TV sets.
I get it. Lara?
I would say we're a little bit 50-50. We have that expensive Canal Play package, and then SFR subscribers. But we are sneaking a little bit of YouTube US political commentary sometimes.
Great. And
so we have 1 minute, guys. Anil, we have 1 minute. So
absolutely. I thank everybody. 2 seconds. Wrap up.
Okay, thanks everybody for joining. I mean, I could talk about this the rest of the day. I hope that this was somewhat informative for you for the French market, and thank you for listening to our panel.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure, and look forward to catching up with you all in France and Paris at some stage, in Netherlands some stage. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks a lot. I'll see you guys.